Hey, in today's video, I'm going to show you how I skip trowel a 280 square foot living room after I've done the popcorn ceiling. And I'm going to show you how I do it, but I'm also going to show you how quickly I do it. So if you're looking to do this as a pro or handyman or bidding jobs or whatever, you can get an idea of how quickly it should go. So I'm going to show you all that right after this. Hey, welcome back to my channel here at That Kilted Guy Videos. And if you like learning how to do your own home improvement projects, picking up tips and tricks, and you want to learn how to save some money, take pride in your workmanship, well, be sure and subscribe to my channel because that's what I'm here for. And if you really want to get all these tips and tricks, click that bell icon and then you'll get notified each time I put out a new video. Now, I'm a 35-year drywall pro. I've owned my own business of Mr. Patch Drywall for 15 years. And I've done nothing but drywall, primarily drywall, for 35 years. I'm here to pass my tips and tricks on to you guys. Okay, so you guys might wonder about, should I buy buckets of mud or boxes of mud? And how do you deal with boxes of mud? And what's the difference, and all that. There might be some confusion. Well, let me clarify a few things. Most commonly, if you buy buckets, you're gonna get the green label all-purpose, which is the heavier mud. It's a little stickier, not my favorite like I was saying, but it will work. The advantage is if you don't have buckets sitting around, you will get a pre-mixed bucket of mud ready to go. But you're gonna pay like 50% more. I think it's $13 for a bucket versus about 8 or 9 for a box. And you're gonna get a mud that you have no choice over because there's not many that come in the bucket. So if you want to save some money and you want to use this USG +3, buy the boxes of mud and pick up 1 or 2 buckets. They're not that much. And then you just dump the mud into the bucket and mix it up each time, and then you can cover up the bucket when you're done. If you try and save mud in a box, even if you tighten it all up and make it so you think it's pretty good, it usually dries in there and flakes and you get a lot of debris in your mud. And I really hate trying to store mud in a box. It stores much better in a bucket. All right, I'm using this heavy duty DeWalt drill. I love this drill. This thing is a powerhouse. You want a good strong drill and you want a T-handle. If you have a regular drill like this, it could literally break your wrist. You got to be really careful. The torque on these things is so strong. And then my mixer of choice is this one, which I'll put a better image up on screen, but it's a 4-bladed mixer. And the advantage to it is it mixes really fast and it doesn't shake the bucket as much. This gets it done faster, less shaking, great mixing. Now, when you mix, try and start out slow, so you want a variable speed, especially if you put water in it, because it could just start slinging mud everywhere. And you usually want to hold the bucket down, either grab it between both feet and really kind of clamp down, or I hold it with my foot. It holds it down really good, keeps it from spinning. I'll just show you how we do it. So I often like to just bump it, and that gets it going. You can just start slow if you want. But here we go. Do you add water to it? How thick should you get it? I usually do. For texture, I like my mud a little bit thinner. So it's a little bit thicker than I want, but not much at all. And you don't want that running off of there or you're going to be dripping. But if you give it a little shake and it comes off nice, that's probably about where you want it. The main way that I tell how thick I want this is by feel. So if you have any doubts, here's the way to do it. Mix it up and mix it up extra thick. Get a little in your pan, start using it. If you're not dripping much, it's probably too thick. You're gonna drip a little bit, but if you're dripping quite a bit, you probably got it too thin. So work up to it where it feels like it spreads reasonably easy and it doesn't work you too hard, but it's not dripping all over the place. That's really kind of how you do it. So the thinner you're gonna put it on, the thinner you can start the mud. So we'll add just a tiny bit more water here. Now how much should you add? I can't tell you that either because every box is different. So I start out by mixing it straight, get a feel for it, how it is, then I start thinning it down. Often I'll end up putting in probably, so this is actually a measuring cup I use. It's easy to dispense it this way. And I just checked, and this is about what I'd normally start with to thin it down, and that's 4 ounces, so probably 1/4 cup. Now, if you're on a budget and you need to mix this up and you don't want to buy this expensive drill and this paddle, I don't blame you. If you're not going to do very much, just put some in your pan and look at my other video on how to mix up hot mud quickly. But basically what it is you take a regular cordless drill, not an impact, and you chuck up a regular old egg beater in there, just like you would use on cake batter. Stick that in your pan, start slow, and you can actually get the same exact mixing as this. It'll vary a little because each time you're adding water, but it can do the job for about $1.99 plus your drill. Okay, I'm up on my stilts and ready to get started, but before I get going, let me talk real briefly about Skip Trowel Texture, because out there on the internet, and especially on YouTube, there's a lot of argument about skip trowel. And what it amounts to is skip trowel is a hand-applied texture with a trowel or a knife blade, and you're basically troweling it onto your surface, and you're creating a pattern that's desirable to you. There's many, many ways to do it. Now in my area, the skip trowel I'm doing is similar to what everybody else is doing. I really like it, and my customers have always loved it. So that's all that matters is, do you like the texture? So do a texture that appeals to you. So for tools today, I'm using a pan that holds a 16-inch knife, so I think it's an 18-inch pan and a 16-inch blade. What I'd recommend if you're a novice, maybe go with just a 10-inch. They're easier to handle. This will just get it done quicker, and that's really all you need, pan and a knife. First step I do when I do a skip trowel is I go around and I band all of the edges, and by that I mean that I coat the edge 100%. And I do that for a few reasons. I've seen jobs where there's a lot of voids and it just looks like there's a hole. Looks like somebody missed something when it's right up against the light switch, cover plate, a door trim, any edge. So it looks better if you just have a solid stripe around here, but you break it up. First, let me give you a little bit of technique. You can see that it starts moving a little bit when I do this, but it's not just totally dripping off of here, but it's not thick either. You can see it eventually it will start dripping. Okay, a couple things. Most of these knives have a slight curve to them. Most of us pros like that curve. If it doesn't have it, we bend it. This is a bendable spine, so we put a curve in it. Then what we want is we want the high point of the curve against the ceiling side. So in other words, if I hold this knife up here like this, the center is the high point. It's bent down on these outer edges, and that keeps those edges from digging in and leaving lines everywhere. So let me just show you 2 examples here. Okay, now you see how I spread it? There's a line, but it's a lap mark, which means this edge is slightly higher than that one. Those are what we want. They look natural, they tend to break up randomly, and if you're gonna sand it off, that sands off really easy. So there's one there, one there. If I flip it over, it doesn't always dig in, but it's more likely to do that right there. Now I made sure it did it. It might not have, but it does often, and you don't want those straight, ugly lines. Okay, now applying the texture, what I do is I load up a little mud on my knife, but not a huge amount. I just want about that much or less. And then I start out by first go ahead and put on some flat areas. It's okay. You can do like that. And then your knife is tilted at about a 45 here, medium light pressure. You don't want to push very hard because you're trying to let it drag the mud off your blade, not spread it onto the ceiling. So you go along here and you start doing little things like this, and then come over here and just start doing like random patterns, and you kind of come into the other pattern at random angles and intervals. Meanwhile, you're skipping and spreading a little bit. Okay, so I'm only going to do that much just to show you, and then come back over it, and we just lay the knife down and go around and just kind of, oops. It's actually hard for me to do this slow. I usually do it fast, you'll see here in a minute. So you just pull the patterns into each other and break up anything that looks too man-made. And by that, I mean, let's say you go well, you see that really straight edge right there, and then that straight edge, you can make that straight edge break up by taking your clean knife. When you're going back over it, you just put slight amount more pressure and pull some of that mud into that area. So watch what happens. It just starts breaking that pattern up. Now it's not so straight. Normally I wouldn't have anything near that straight, but you'll get circles, you'll get triangles, and things that just look like it's too man-made. Just change your angle, go over it this way, go over it this way, and it'll keep pulling mud out of the edge and into the open area and break that up. Now banding, by what I mean by banding is go around and do like this. Just don't worry too much about if it looks kind of straight. We're gonna break that up. Just get a solid coat on here. And then you break it up by simply starting back in here and doing things like this. And see how I've broken that edge up where you can't really tell that I had a straight edge there. And then in the corner, we've got a 90 right here, so I want to break that up a little bit. Okay, see how I broke up the pattern. Then when we come back over, we're gonna knock all these high points like this down, just very lightly. Although if you like those high points, leave them. Do what makes you happy. That's what this texture is about. Okay, now for the rest of the video, I'm just gonna back the camera up and let you watch me doing this. So I may put some music on here for you. I'm not gonna talk much. I'm actually gonna go put my music on. I hate working without music, but if I play my music, YouTube won't let me monetize it. So you can just watch. Now, if you don't want to watch the whole thing, that's totally understandable. Watch what you want, and I'll put a little timestamp up here and I'll tell you where to skip to if you want to see the end. Okay, there we got everything textured in this room. We did about 280, 290 square foot in that much time. I'm not sure what it is, so I'll calculate it, put it on the screen for you. That's a good reference for you. So what I normally figure when I'm figuring how fast can I do one, I figure 200 to 250 square feet per hour. That's allowing for these remodels with light boxes and things you got to deal with. If you're doing something higher, harder, it's going to be slower. Doing big open walls, you could probably go faster. But now let me show you some pictures of how it looks when it was wet. You'll notice that it's pretty splotchy. It might look real uneven. It might not even look that good. I've had customers walk in and go, oh, wow, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. Then the next day after I painted it, they loved it. So don't let that splotchiness fool you. But here's what it's gonna look like dry. In this picture, I'm gonna show you it's been painted. You'll see the detail is a lot more subtle, harder to see things. It's a soft looking texture. Everything kind of blends in once it's been painted, so it looks a lot better. Now, if you decide it's still a little too much texture for you, you can actually sand the heck out of it, smooth it out, take off all the lap marks, and it will be an even more subtle texture. Now, I'm gonna be doing videos on different types of hand textures. I'll do some with the sand, some different types of patterns than the standard sand texture. I'm gonna do some that are what I call a pull drag trowel texture, like this one. And that one can look really pretty. And a few more examples. Overall, I have plans to put out about 30 texture videos to show you guys how to do up to 30 different textures. And then in another series, I'm gonna show you how to match some of those. So once you've got it all textured, the next day you can probably paint it, but you need to wait about 24 hours. If you put some high volume fans on it, crank the heat up a bit, like 76 degrees, or open the windows, let a lot of air go through. You're trying to remove the moisture out of the house and warm it up. So warm, dry air will dry it the fast. And moving the air with a fan really speeds it up. So the next day you come in, what you look for is right in the three-way corner where the two walls meet the ceiling. That's where it'll dry the slowest. If it's went from this yellow color to pure white, it's dry. Usually I say 24 hours to be safe, but I often put fans on it and heat, and I can get in and start painting the next day, although sometime it's still got some wet spots, but I can start prepping and getting ready and go ahead and paint it the next day. Now you do need to prime it. Always with drywall, you should prime it with a coat of primer, and then 2 coats of paint are gonna look the best by far. As always, you know I appreciate you guys stopping by. You guys are why I do this. I hope this helped you, and if there's any ideas you have for other videos, let me know. But otherwise, I will see you guys on the next video, so take care. The way it looks